Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Saga, one of our deep dive playlists here on Inside the Force. I'm Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. How are you, Hannah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. Welcome back. It's been a little too long. I think we had a great kickoff with got some good positive feedback from Queen's Peril, which was a fantastic novel. But we're going to take a little turn into this episode because I really enjoyed this comic series when it came out, and I wanted to share it with somebody. You were dying to get into some comics, some really good ones out there. So we will deep dive this. But first, real quick, what are you reading lately? I know you just got done with Poe Dameron, I think, right?
Yes, I did get finished with Poe Dameron, and I'm trying to get through Alphabet Squadron book 2.
Shadowfall, yeah.
Yep, I am trying to get through that one. I'm not gonna lie, that one's a little bit of a slower one for me to get into, but trying to get through that, and then just waiting for other books on the horizon.
Yes, I'm with you. I took a turn. I took a pause off of Shadowfall, started and completed the short Dr. Aphra audio novel, and now I'm back on Shadowfall like you, trying to get through it. It's horrible because it's horrible because I'm not driving anywhere, which is when I usually listen to my books. So it's taking a little longer for me to do it. But next around the horizon, I think what we're both excited for is Thrawn, right? Yes. So we will. Yes, and of course we do want to do some Beyond the Sagas on those, as well as the previous Thrawn trilogy, which was fantastic. So, but let's talk about the Rise of Kylo Ren. Now, for everybody that hasn't gone into comics or looking to get into something like this, this was a 4-issue miniseries that dropped right before, I think. I think it was right before The Rise of Skywalker came out, or it might have been a little after. It could have been a little after. But this is a prequel. It gives you the beginning, obviously the rise, what happened to Ben Solo, and what truly happened with the temple and Luke. I mean, there's so much there. So Hannah, go ahead and start us off. 4 issues. You read it. What's your overall perception and perspective of the story?
Absolutely love it. Said this time and time again with these books and their connection to this trilogy within the whole Star Wars saga, is that it adds more. It helps fill in some of the gaps that we were craving, but didn't know we were craving. Like, for example, I'm not going to give too much away, but you think Ben Solo burned down the temple and purposely destroyed everything, but something else actually happened, and you end up feeling more for Ben. And you also realize that he really had no other place to go. And then also we get to see a look inside the Knights of Ren, which I know was a huge thing that you and I previously discussed with the Rise of Skywalker, how we were hoping to see these epic battles with these warriors. Yeah. In the comic, you actually get that. You get the history behind them. You get the stakes of joining them. You get more of their purpose. So it's just, it fills in a lot of those holes that we were craving. And I think it's also interesting that we see Snoke in his natural habitat.
Yes.
That took me by surprise. You also see that Snoke has been talking to Ben when he's a teen.
For a long time.
So that establishes that relationship. So it just filled in a lot of holes. And I think it also proved that Ben really was a powerful Jedi, and there was a reason why Luke had that fear, because you do see him fight some other Jedi, and compared to what they can do, you're truly amazed at this kid's power with the Force.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah, you made some good points there, because I think the biggest thing is truly very similar to, I kind of compare it to a little bit about his father, right? With Han, when we get introduced to him in episode 4, you hear about these things that had happened to him, right? The Kessel Run and dropping the shipment and meeting Chewie. Well, we finally got to see that in Solo, right? But there are all these questions about, did he, wow, he burnt the temple down. Why is his crystal, his lightsaber, react the way it does? What are the Knights of Ren, and why does he lead the Knights of Ren? I mean, there's so many questions that this book now answers. And you're right about the temple thing, because I think that's the biggest change in canon from the movies. Because in the movies, it's laid out pretty clear that he destroyed the temple, and I don't even know if that's truly answered in this book.
I think it's hinted.
Really?
I think it's hinted, and I don't want to say too much, but I think it's hinted based on what we know from the movies. We have an idea.
Okay, I think I know where you're going now. Yeah, sure. Okay.
You know where I'm going? So we have an idea of what happened.
Yes.
But you are right, it is not confirmed. It's still on a fact base unknown.
Yes, totally agree. And what you do find out, which I don't, I like you, I don't want to spoil too much, but this is the beginning of the book, where there is an established leader. There is a Ren, right? So there is a Ren that's the leader in this, and it is very awesome to see how much this knighthood has actually been a part of Ben's life since he was a kid. And the scene, and I'm telling you, the scene where they run into Luke, I mean, that's the scene everybody, I feel like, was waiting to see in a movie, right?
Oh yes. You truly see their capabilities as fighters and warriors, and we got a taste of that in the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
But the comic helps secure their reputation.
Yeah. So what was maybe the main question or main bit of information that you got out of this that really kind of blew your mind about, what, or really surprised about?
I mean, I don't, well, the temple was, that came out of nowhere. But I honestly think we always knew that Ben had to have had some sort of relationship with Snoke.
Right.
I mean, no one turns to the dark side no one turns just like that.
Or by themselves.
So I think what I was pleasantly surprised about with this short series is we just get not the beginning, but it's also not the middle. I would say it's between there. We get that part where the seed's already been planted, it's kind of grown roots, and Ben realizes, okay, this isn't working out for me anymore. Everything I've known is a lie. Yes. He goes back to the fact that his dad's last name really isn't Solo. He just made it up. He was named after Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's never met the guy.
Yep.
So he believes that his whole life is a lie, so of course he wants to start new. And we also find out that the name he comes up with was a name that he thought of when he was a child.
Yeah.
So it just shows, I was pleasantly surprised how effortlessly and how cohesively his transition to the dark side makes sense through these books.
Yeah, and it's interesting to point out that you do get introduced to 3 of Luke's students that weren't there when the temple was burning. so you got to, I love the issue where you got to understand the point of views of each one of those students. One of them was really jealous of Kylo or Ben, knew that he was stronger. She wanted to be as strong, but couldn't get there. And I love the explanation that Luke had to her. He said, think of yourself as the door, and the Force is not, it's not more strong with you than it is with me. It's just that it's flowing more in me than it is you. And you got to think of yourself as a doorway. Just the more you open up, the more it flows, that's what I want. I want that in a movie, a TV show or something. Anyway, so and then one of the other ones, I think it was Ty. Ty was very connected with Ben. They were deep friends. They understood each other. They sensed each other. And then you had, I think his name was Hennix. That was the he was the God, I can't remember. Can't remember the species. Oh man, that's gonna hurt me. It's the guys that fight the Moncals.
I can't remember it either.
But anyway, he he wants the knowledge, so he wants to learn more and keep learning. So he's learning from holocrons, and anyway, it's a great dynamic of understanding these students. And what you saw, which was really good to see, because you kind of had questions about it. I feel like when you're watching the movies, Luke was doing it. He was training a new generation of Jedi. And, it's unfortunate that this had to happen, but that's what I think we all expected to happen after Return of the Jedi. We all expected to see that come to fruition. So unfortunately it didn't. And I don't know, that's one of my big, so that's one big thing. But honestly, the main surprise, or not surprise, but the main way to learn, main thing that we learned about this that I really wanted to know was how he got the red crystal.
Yep.
And that was pretty good, right? I thought it was really interesting because the whole backstory with this, which was actually introduced in the Ahsoka novel, the novel by E.K. Johnston by Ahsoka about 3 or 4 years ago, it was in that book that we learned that there aren't any red crystals. How a Sith warrior gets to have a red lightsaber is that they find a crystal, or they take their own crystal, which in this case was Ben's own crystal. And what they do is they bend the will of the crystal to the dark side, and therefore the crystal then starts to bleed and turns red. And we learned in the Ahsoka novel that you can actually redeem a red crystal. When you bring it back from the dark side to the light, it becomes white. And that's why she has those white sabers when it gets to Rebels, right? So that was a whole new canon introduction of the crystals, because back in the day that you had different crystal colors: green, purple, red, black, blue. But anyway, so you see, and I will spoil this part because I think it's worth talking about, but when he bleeds his crystal, he cracks it. And that's what makes it unstable. And that's why it's like, and so it was unstable that he had to actually build the cross guard so that it wouldn't just blow up his lightsaber when he turned it on. So I just thought, man, that is awesome. I love that part. I love that part of it.
That was awesome. But I think it also makes sense because he does have so much anger in him.
Absolutely.
It makes sense why his crystal would crack.
Yes.
And that anger is reinforced in everything that happens before then.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I think usually what we learned in Vader, the Vader series, which I'm going to have you read next, is that, when you don't have your saber anymore, because Vader didn't have his saber, he had to go hunt one down, and so you're bending the will of another person's lightsaber, which is, it's incredible. It's incredible. I think it's an incredible addition to the canon, how they do that. It's really good. So So Hannah, I think the overall question I think that we'd like to do with this show Beyond the Saga is really talk about the overall, storyline as it relates to the true saga, right? The saga of the movies. So with this story now, knowing about Ben, how does this, if at all, impacts your perception of the sequel trilogy?
As I said before, it just fills in some holes that I didn't even know needed filling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also just builds up more of Ben's backstory and answers a lot more questions and gives us a bit of a more sympathetic and empathetic insight into why he journeyed down the path towards the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it adds a lot to the series. I also think you get that battle with the Knights of Ren that you've been wanting to see.
Yes.
Even though it's comic book form, it's very visually stunning. So you still get the excitement, you still get the tension that you would get on the screen. So I think it adds a tremendous amount to the saga.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you watch episode 7 now, and he walks off that ship at the very beginning, and he comes up to Lor Santeca, you understand the relationship there, right? Because Lor Santeca is in this book. So right there, it changes that viewpoint of that scene, right? You don't. When we first saw that in 2015, you had no idea who this guy was. You had no idea how he knew who. I mean, at the time, we didn't even know that was Ben Solo, right? When you first see that scene. So it does change a lot there. I think the biggest thing for me, and this is what I was saving from you before we started recording this. I've come to have a really different viewpoint of the sequel trilogy, right? I have a different view of it now. And after reading this and really thinking about this, to me, and I know it's probably easy to say, but this should have been episode 7. I think we should have seen Kylo Ren's Ben Solo's fall in the movies, because I think the impact would have been a lot bigger of his redemption, later on in the in episode 9. Anyway, because I think this, like you said, the way it reads, the way the story's set up, the visuals of it, that it would have looked so good, and it would. I mean, it's easy to say now because they went back and wrote it probably after episode 7, 8, and maybe even 9 were already written, but this is a good story that should have been out there maybe sooner than now.
I 120% agree. Looking back, this should have been episode 7. And maybe make the story more about Ben Solo / Kylo Ren, make it more about his journey.
Yeah, because he's the Skywalker, right?
Skywalker,
in the Skywalker saga.
But and that is true. But also at the same time, that's something we haven't really seen in Star Wars. You could argue we've seen it with Anakin. And you could argue that episodes 1 through 6 are all about Anakin Skywalker's journey, but he wasn't the protagonist. Imagine having your protagonist be the one to go through all of that. Because the protagonist could be a bad person. It's just your main focal point of the story. So that would have been incredibly interesting.
That's good. That's a good point. Yeah, that would have been really interesting, because you could easily, which I've always argued, you could easily have made 7 and 8 one movie, because technically it is, right? It's basically a continuation, right? You could have condensed it down So you could have had this episode 7 and 8 be episode 8, and then you could have still had the same layout, but just had that full circle of Ben Solo. And but either way, it's not the way it is. So that's why I think it's important that people should check this series out, this comic series, because it does add so much to it.
It really does. And it just because it's a comic doesn't mean it doesn't still carry the same power that the movies carry.
Absolutely.
It's still impactful. It's still emotional. It's still vibrant.
It is. Absolutely.
Action-packed.
Action-packed. And I failed to say in the beginning, but I do need to point out that the story is written by Charles Soule. And for those who don't know Charles Soule, to me, he's the best comic book writer out there. I haven't read a story from him that is bad. I used to read a bunch of his stuff when he was doing DC Comics. He's doing a lot of Star Wars now. He did a Lando series. He did a Vader series. He did this Kylo Ren series. He's about to do. He wrote one of the novels that's coming out in High Republic. The guy's phenomenal. So art was done by Will Liney. So definitely, it's a really good book. It's a really good visuals. So definitely highly recommend. So high rating, I'm assuming, on this. Did we do a rating for Queen's Peril? I think we did, didn't we? I thought
I think we did.
Yeah.
We did a rating. We did a rating. I mean,
I think I did remember. Yeah, because I think you were at like a 4 or 4.5 with Queen's Peril. Yeah.
With this, I would also give it a 4.5.
Yes, I'm with you. It's rare that I'll ever give anything a 5.
Yes,
because that's like perfect. This is close. So this is a 4.5 for sure. This is really good. This is really good. So go get The Rise of Kylo Ren. It's you can actually buy it as a trade paperback, which is a collection of it now. I think that's out now. I don't maybe hold me to that, but I think it is. Or you can just go get on. Digital comics is the way of the future now, almost, right? So you can get to your digital comics these days. Okay, that'll do it. That's a great episode for the Beyond the Saga, Rise of Kylo Ren. Again, we'll be back doing more expanded universe content, be it novels, comics, games. Of course, when games start hitting have you seen are you a Lego game?
Oh, yes. I'm excited.
Yeah, the Skywalker Saga Lego series. Like, I can't wait for that. But they pushed it back. Yeah. Because I think it was supposed to come out like Christmas this year, but then they pushed it back to the spring. So bummer. Anyway,
at least it's coming. It's not canceled.
That's very true. Very true. All right. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Go subscribe to us on YouTube for more Beyond the Sagas, and of course our other playlists like Cancel Sessions and Inside the Force, our weekly show. For everybody here, Hannah.
May the Force be with you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. And she said it. May the Force be with you.